In your manual, in the very first part, you're going to see the tool list, which is for all of the electronic courses for the first year. First one that we have listed is going to be a small screwdriver, and I'm going to progress through most of these as I go through, so be sure you have this page ready to go, and we'll begin with our video. The very first one is called a 3/32 screwdriver, and it's a flat blade, and it's used quite often to adjust small components and some test equipment. It requires this. It does need to be that long. It could always be a little 2 or 3 inches, but it is important to have one of these 3/32 regular blade screwdrivers. Next type of screwdriver, and it has several different widths to it. It could be a 1/4 inch, or it could be 3/16, which is this one right here. This is used most often for different types of screws that hold assemblies together. They still use the flat blade, and others of course have gone to the Phillips, which is the very next one. This is a really good size. It's a 4-inch blade we're using with different equipment. When we get to what's known as the Phillips screwdriver, you'll notice that it is divided into 4 different segments in the very tip of the blade itself. And also, this particular one is called number 1. It is the most common of all of the different types of Phillips screwdrivers that we work with in electronic equipment. If we need to use something that's a little bit larger, there actually is something called a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and it looks like this. It's quite popular with different types of wood screws, as well as larger types of screws that use the Phillips head to it. Most people understand what a small flashlight is, and in the case of what we're using here, most of the time students have their own flashlight that is an LED type of flashlight. So instead of this one here, it might be a little bit smaller, thinner, and so forth. Next item on the list is a 1/4 inch screwdriver. These nut drivers, even though some do have screwdriver blades and they're interchangeable, you'll notice that they have little hex cutouts in the very ends of them. Each one of these has a specific type of size that it has, like 1/4 inch, could be 5/16 inch, and they go quite large, and they also have some really small ones, but you'll notice that they have a little inset at the very end of these. Something that is always used in our electronic courses as well as on the job is these types of needle nose pliers. This is kind of a small needle nose plier. You notice that it kind of focuses to not quite a fine point, but just kind of focuses or tapers out to a smaller point for small jobs. And a little bit bigger jobs, there's one that's just a shade bigger, and this is a 5-inch needle nose pliers here. Some of these do not have the wire cutting ability, and others do. It's just a variety of different types, but they all need to perform the same particular function. There's a wide variety of this particular device, and this is called diagonal pliers. It's also known as wire cutters, and that's just a common way of referring to them. So on these diagonal pliers, or wire cutters, you'll notice that there's 2 very fine, and they are fairly sharp and tough type of edges to them, and the purpose of these is to cut the leads on components, or for wire. Anytime you need to cut pieces of wire, that's what they're made for. They don't do a very good job on any type of metal that's heavy, like steel plating or anything. They're primarily used just for wire cutting. This tool is kind of common, and you probably have one of these in a tool drawer at home. But they're just a regular straight jaw plier, and they have the ability to widen out to a little bit bigger job, or narrow back. And there's a variety of lengths and sizes. This is just a common 5-inch pair of pliers, and kind of comes in handy if we do any type of metal work, which we do in one of the courses, and that'll be a handy tool for that. Anytime that we're working on electronic equipment, and we usually supply these are called test leads. And the purpose of a test lead is to connect, say, one part of a circuit to another part of a circuit, or it can be used to connect components into a circuit. or just join different circuits together, and it makes for a very handy type of connecting tool that we use in a lot of our different courses and for electronic processes. Any type of a straight edge will work for different kinds of drawings you're going to be doing in your laboratory manual, or different types of assignments where you need measurements or cutting to some particular length. It could be wire, could be other types of lead lengths. This is in inches, and some of these are actually in centimeters, so that you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimeters, and other types of rulers are even more evenly divided down into millimeters and so forth. But this straight edge has different purposes. Just a good one to have. It doesn't need to be complicated. This is just a piece of plastic. Others are made of wood or metal or something like that. This is just a really common way of doing and performing measurements. Next on the list is our safety glasses. This is something you'll be required to locate. Some of the different stores that handle tools usually carry safety glasses. Ensure that whatever you get, it covers both the side of your eye, and it has something for the back part, just so it fits on your face more evenly and keeps it pretty well snug up against the skin on your face. We also use these in soldering, and so it's absolutely essential that you have those that are rated at the Z87.1 ANSI rating on it. Next thing we're going to cover is the wire cutters. There's several different versions of wire cutters. Actually, some of these are made for stranded wire, these others are made for solid. This particular one is made for solid wire, and that's because most of the wire that we use in our program is solid. Electrical applications require stranded, but most of our requirements are going to be with solid wire. And these have a particular range. They go from 18 gauge wire up to 26. This is the size that you're going to need for all of our laboratory experiments.